Chiefs versus Birds is coming at you again from New Orleans. What does this matchup look like, and what's different this time around today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It is a Thursday show. We're going to go over the Eagles today as we start looking forward. We're brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. We are going to go over just how to peak at the perfect time, because that's what this team is on the path for. That's coming up later in the show. We're going to do in and out and see what we think so far before the team has actually gotten out on the practice field for the Eagles. But we start looking at them in New Orleans and comparing where they're at right now, where they were earlier in the season, where they were 2 years ago. This is Chris Clark from KC Chiefs Corner. I'm Ryan Tracy from NFL 33 and RGR Football. Check those things out. Those are where we put our other work. We very much appreciate it. Thanks for making us your first listen here on Locked On Chiefs. Make another Locked On show your next listen. There's a lot going on around the draft right now, and you should check that out. There is a ton of information coming. We appreciate you. You locos, you know that. You're here every day, and we love you for it. Check out the text line if you want that much more like the locos do it, 816-357-8781. We're going to get after it right from the stop, because I feel this is a very different Eagles team. There was a lot of hype, a lot of question, I felt, last time going into this ballgame. This seems simplified to me, and maybe I'm making it too well-rounded, but this is about Saquon Barkley and Saquon Barkley and Saquon Barkley. And then that's what this ballgame is about, as far as I can tell.
Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley. You know, I get it to an extent. I would say that the Eagles offense really hasn't changed a ton other than Barkley. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a problem. Yeah, they don't have Jason Kelsey, but their center was very good this year. I think he made the Pro Bowl. Obviously won't be playing in the Pro Bowl, but he made the Pro Bowl. Dickerson made the Pro Bowl, the guard next to him. So they still have a good offensive line. But you shift it over and you look at the defensive side of the ball, I think that's where you really see the changes. And that is something that I think could give the Chiefs some trouble.
Yeah, I agree. And both those guys today would have been non-participants, according to the simulated kind of stuff, along with Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown. We did get the simulated report here. Even they were going to give rest to Dallas Goedert if he had to. Now, Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson are the two guys that played center last week. And Cam Jurgens says he's going to go. Jason Kelsey has talked about it for the last year or so, about how they prepped all this stuff to be able to do the things that Jason did with Cam, knowing that Jason was getting a little bit older and making it more difficult. I don't see the same power and the same effectiveness in that tush-push style, brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. I think, honestly, what we just saw last week has been a more effective unit in that quarterback sneak area in the Buffalo Bills. So the key for me is, if you don't even, let them in there very often, say they get one or two tries at that, how much more confident are you the Chiefs defense can stop that particular play this time than, say, maybe the last time they played, or certainly earlier this season?
I do think that it's something that they're going to have to practice for this week. And the problem of practicing for that is then the reality is that play could injure people just because of how you're supposed to be trying to defend it and how you're supposed to be trying to attack it. And wanting to actually practice that, and the way that they're going to practice that will be interesting. I do feel better about it after watching what they were able to do to the Bills and stopping them on 4th down and 1. And yes, that was a stop on 4th down and 1. Can't see the ball across. And honestly, it's funny because I went back and I watched the play before that where everybody said it was a first down. You screwed yourself. Like they didn't challenge it. Like, if you think it's a first down, go challenge it.
Yeah.
They didn't challenge it, and they got up and they ran a play immediately trying to think that they were going to catch the Chiefs off guard, and the Chiefs stood there and took care of it. So to me, that tells me that they have worked on that kind of thing, specifically to prepare for Josh Allen in that scenario. Mm-hmm. So I think they'll be ready for what they're going to be dealing with Jalen Hurts. Whether they'll be successful or not, that's the big question.
Well, I think they will be successful because two factors, actually, because after watching last week, Jalen Hurts ain't going left. I'll tell you that. He is guaranteed not to go left. Now, normally he's going to tuck up, maybe slide a little bit right. as he pushes through it, it all depends on the resistance you get, but it is much more of a straightforward thing, I felt, in the way that Philly has done this in the past. But knowing that that's there and knowing that they just stopped Josh, who I think has more momentum behind him and has more power overall, I think that probably makes him want to go away from it. But those two things, it's interesting that we're talking, first and foremost, in this whole initial look at them, is about how they move the ball on the ground. Now, the only people that know better about how good Saquon Barkley is are the people who decided to let him go. So, Giants, you get what you deserve. But in this game, you can throw the ball. They have some pass catchers, obviously, little banged up. But I still feel like they can't do that as their first task. I still feel they have to have this run game as the thing that sets up their passing game. I don't feel it's straight drop back and they feel that they can attack.
That's going to be interesting because I do think that they have the ability to get after it with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith if they're healthy. They have 2 weeks to try to get them healthy, so that's going to be the big question. Can they get healthy enough to where they're going to be in a position where they can attack? If they can't, then you're in a situation where, yeah, you run first trying to set up the pass, but you still have those guys out there and they're still going to play. It's a Super Bowl at this point. Any player that has any opportunity to play, no matter what their injury is going to find a way to play. That's just the reality. Especially if you're a star, you're going to find a way to be out there if you can. So I think that's a big deal. And we'll see. I'm going to be really curious to see how the Chiefs attack and try to slow down the Philly offense. Because if you go back 2 years and watch what happened the last time, they didn't have the running game that they have right now. They had a good passing attack. They didn't have the running game, and they still put up a ton of points on the Chiefs. That's a little bit concerning, knowing that they're going to be going into a situation where their running game is so much better and their passing offense hasn't taken a huge step back. It's taken a little bit of a step back, but it hasn't been a huge step back.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And remember, there were some crazy plays in that ballgame, to tell you the truth. Nick Bolton's
had to come up with
a remarkable play. Yeah, I mean, that's how you do it. When you compare these two teams, the Eagles have been putting out more points per game. Except the Chiefs just peaked for their season, put up the highest point total that they put up this season. So I don't know that I'm going to hold that against it. Point differential, they're second in the league at 16. I'm sorry, plus 160. You average that out. Chiefs are 11th, plus 59. The thing that seems to be coming back to is this team is what this team is. And we always talk in the preseason about how every team's a little bit different. This team does not mind winning close games. They've been able to do it. They have a 2-game advantage against the Eagles and them being able to pull it out when the scores are close.
The one thing I would argue with you, though, is when you look at the Eagles and you look at the Chiefs, you go back and we talked about this already this week, and we've talked about it several times leading up to this game. Kansas City wasn't trying to put anything on tape. Eagles are a completely different ballgame. They went out. They were trying to blow people out at times. They were doing whatever they could. And it was obvious in the game against the Commanders. They were trying to blow them out at that point. And that's fine if that's the way you want to play. I have no problem with it. And I wish Kansas City would do it from time to time. But the reality is it's hard to argue against the results that Andy Reid has been able to show to this point. Like, you're in a situation where okay, all I have to do is get back to the Super Bowl and we can run something that's going to just completely catch somebody off guard. Look at Corn Dog. Like, I understand they're not going to be able to do Corn Dog probably
That's
against
still
Philly
in the
this time
playbook,
around.
I guarantee you.
Well, I know
bet
it's in
you
the
we
playbook.
see it.
Maybe. I'd be surprised if Philly wasn't ready for it this time around. But they're going to have something else. Remember, the Super Bowl's when they bust stuff out. The Rose Bowl parade was in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Corn Dog was in the Super Bowl. They're going to have something. And, the thing that they did against the Buffalo Bills wasn't the Super Bowl, obviously, but it shows you things that they can do and shows you different ways that they can adapt and use going to the Super Bowl. And now the Eagles have to prepare for that type of setup. And I guarantee you, Andy still has 2 or 3 different variations of what they can do with the ball in that scenario.
Oh, absolutely. I'm with you 100%. We're going to find out what those are, and we're going to take a stab at what we would like to see, what we think that's in or out, and it's coming up next. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes are waiting, wondering, and worrying if you were going to get that money back. And then waiting, wondering, and worrying even more. Now, Taxes is matching with the TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert gives you their taxes their undivided attention as they work through your return so you can get real-time updates on their progress and you can focus on your day. An expert will find you every deduction possible from every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All you have to do is do that to get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, wondering, or worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available for TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. This is always fun because we get to come up with some wacky ideas about what we think would be better or worse. So I'm going to give you a two-parter first.
Okay.
In or out, the Chiefs are able to hold Saquon Barkley under 100 yards. And if they are, do they have to use six-man boxes to do it all game long?
I'm going to say out. I think that Kansas City is going to look at this, and I do think that they're going to try to limit Saquon Barkley to under 100 yards. I don't think they're going to get it done. I think he's that dynamic of a runner, and I think that the Eagles' passing attack is good enough. It's not great, but it's good enough to be able to use play action and open things up with stuff underneath to open up the run a little bit more. So I think that they're going to try to stop the running game. I don't think they're going to be successful. I think he goes off for over 100 yards in this game.
Okay. I'm going to take the in because I look back to the last time we've had these discussions, and obviously Saquon's a different back. I freely admit that. But I can't help but hear Frank Clark in my head when we talk about stopping a running back in the playoffs. Because they've done it to Derrick Henry. They've done it to every major rusher that they've faced.
It's a great point.
I feel like they have a dial-up mentality. And if that is the case, I think it stymies the Eagles' offense. So it's got to be part of the goal, right? I agree with you. And the key to me is if they do that with a combination of securing an early lead on the scoreboard, I think that helps get Nick Sirianni out of what he's doing. I think Nick Sirianni is a subpar coach. And I'm about tired of his lip, so I'm just going to go against him the whole way.
About tired of his lip?
I've
been tired of it since the last time he was in Kansas City. He can be salty all he wants. Kansas City won the game, and say what you want, they won the Super Bowl. So congratulations. Don't care. Kansas City's never really cared about regular season games. I don't know why you would think that they care about regular season games. Generally speaking, they haven't looked like they've cared about regular season games. They win.
Remind me of that in the spring, please, or in the early fall next year, because I will probably go back on my tangent.
Well, fair enough. And you can go back on your tangent. What I will say though is, you look at this, and the other thing that really kind of sticks out to me and makes me wonder how this game is going to go is the last couple of seasons. Mike Pennell has been somebody they've added in the playoffs. He's been there all year this year. He's played all year this year. I am a little concerned about that with his age. I think he's played great, but is there going to be a drop-off a little bit because he is a little bit more worn down than he would have been coming in fresh? Because he absolutely manhandled Trent Williams at times in the Super Bowl last year, which nobody really does. So, that's going to be something that'll be interesting to watch. In or out? Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins both catch a touchdown in this game.
I'm going to go in. I don't think it's going to be huge yardage for both of them. I feel like they're going to connect with Hollywood on something. They've been trying pretty dang hard to hit chunk plays to him, and I do think it actually happens in the Super Bowl. Maybe one for a score. But I think DeAndre is super motivated as well. So I do think that he gets in the end zone. It's just not a huge reception count or a huge yardage count, but I do think he puts points on the board.
What about Xavier Worthy?
It's hard to say no at this point. I mean, for him to be doing what he's doing at this point and say Xavier's not going to get in the end zone, I don't know that I can do it. I think it is very borderline, though, because I do think with all the things that he has done in the last couple of weeks, the Eagles defense is going to be focused on him. They try to run those end arounds. You're going to see outside linebackers jumping those gaps and trying to take that away, which does afford some counter type stuff that Kareem and Isaiah can take advantage of. So that's all good. I just don't know.
Well, also,
I think the yardage might go to X and maybe not the scores.
well, it also could open up stuff on the backside. I mean, if they're over pursuing on that regard, it doesn't have to be necessarily even a run. If you're going to run, if you're going to fake a run to Worthy going to the left, maybe you turn around and throw it to the right because the defense is shifted trying to follow him over. There's a lot of different ways that they could go. And I will say this, if X scores it, it may not be a touch. It may not, sorry, it may not be a pass. Let me put it that way.
That's fair as well. All right. In or out. When it comes down to the end of everything, I think it's going to be back and forth. I think there will be turnovers, but I think the Chiefs come out on top in the turnover ratio, and that's how they get a win. Are you in or out?
I'm going to go in. They've been very good about taking care of the ball this year, and I don't think that Patrick's going to have another oops situation like he had against the Bills. And I don't know if that was related to, weather conditions or whatnot, but obviously you're in a situation where weather isn't going to be an issue in this game. So I do think that I'm in. I think the Chiefs are going to win the turnover battle, and that's going to help them get to a victory against the Eagles.
I like it.
In or out? Saquon Barkley has less than 1.5 touchdowns in this game.
Oh. Their offense can't run without him, and I do think they put up a fight. I will take the over. I'm out. He scores more than 1.5 touchdowns, and yet they still lose.
Okay. You're already saying that. You're already giving them your prediction that who's going to
win.
Yeah,
sorry, folks. You're going to have to wait a week and a few days for that, but we'll get to that. The question is, what's the best way to get those things done? You got to peak at the perfect time. How do they get that done this coming week and the week after? It's coming up next. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, pretty much anything, even comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement is absolutely unbelievable, especially if it's Zach Bryan or somebody that you really dig. Right now, GameTime has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events, whether it's a new feature, and this one really works, Game Picks. This feature filters out all the fluff. You only get the incredible deals on the great seats that you're looking for. You don't have to waste time searching for thousands of tickets on and off, back and forth. I love this, and I've used it most recently on a comedy show, and we did something over New Year's. It was great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. That'll get you $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time. Make sure you check out KC Chiefs Corner as well as NFL 33. Those are our Substacks, and you can watch me on rgrfootball.com as well. That's here on the YouTube platform. We appreciate you. Check out another Locked On show for your next listen or watch, whatever you happen to be doing. Whatever we happen to be doing, it has to go towards one goal, and that is play your best ball right now. This week, next week, this is it. And I have to say, not just the points that they put up on offense, but I have to give them credit for the defensive stand, the special teams contribution. The best game the Chiefs played was just last week. The question then becomes, do you think they have more ceiling?
I would say, because I don't think that they showed everything. I mean, we've said this over and over and over again, and I'll say it again. They haven't showed everything. I don't understand how you look at, and I'm not saying you're saying this, but I'm just saying in general, I don't understand how people would look at this offense and see what they did with DeAndre Hopkins in the middle of the season and think that there isn't more ceiling here. He's disappeared in the playoffs. They literally haven't used him. He hasn't been out there. It's not a matter of him not getting open and him not being targeted. He's not out there. He's not getting the snaps. You cannot convince me that that is not going to change in the Super Bowl. He is going to be somebody that's going to be a big part of their plans in the Super Bowl. And it may not be something where he's, getting, 10 targets. It could just be that he's going to get 5 or 6, and on third down, he's going to be the first or second option on third down. That's possible too. But the reality is that you saw last week against the Bills, JuJu Smith-Schuster step up. And JuJu hasn't really been playing much all season either. And then all of a sudden he has 2 huge catches. And obviously it's all situational, and that's how it's going to work in the Philly game 2, it's all going to be situational. It's all going to be based on what kind of coverages are they seeing, who's out there, who do they have on defense. It's a completely different defense. I get all that. But the reality is that the Chiefs are going to be going into this game with Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Xavier Worthy, and JuJu Smith-Schuster as their wideouts. That is a huge upgrade from where they were 2 years ago.
Right.
And I think it's a huge upgrade from just about any team that they've really had, to be quite honest with you. Like, even the teams that had Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins, you didn't really have a ton of depth. You had guys that could maybe contribute, but you didn't really have depth. I think they have depth here that can actually do something. Justin Watson can do more than just go out there and block. He can actually catch the ball too, and he's your fifth wide receiver. You have to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I have to agree. And if you have to use your sixth wide receiver, Nick Rumeo's making an impact in the return game. If you have to get down to that point, if there's an injury, you got to feel better about 5 and 6 now than you did a couple of years ago. I agree with that. I don't think I quite feel as good about the secondary as I did a couple of years ago. Obviously, the departure of L'Jarius Sneed has a big impact on that. So it gives you a little bit of yin to the yang. But I do feel like, despite what was a tougher matchup last week, I do feel that they still can peak as well. And Trent McDuffie had maybe an atypically off game. For Mac Hollins to be the guy that beats you, that just floors me, to be specific. Yep. But this is a passing attack in Philadelphia that is three-pronged, and that's pretty much it. It is A.J. Brown. Put it this way. Hurts threw for 1,000 less yards than Patrick this year, and yet his top two receivers went close to 2,000 yards, whereas Kels and Xavier barely got to, just short of 1,500. I think that tells you what this pass game has to be. And I do think that Spagnuolo is better, and the secondary is better equipped to take away those options than they were last week.
So I will counter with what you're saying I think the defense could take a little bit of a step back from where they were 2 years ago, but I think the offense is better. And it goes beyond just the wide receivers. To me, it's also the running backs. But the bigger one to me, honestly, is I think Patrick Mahomes is even better. He's got more experience. He's seen more. He's done more. He's going to be going into this game healthy. And my apologies for the last time I said that this might be his last healthy game since the last healthy Super Bowl since Tampa Bay, because he was dealing with turf toe in Tampa Bay. A lot of listeners decided they wanted to share that, and I forgot. So thank you. The reality is, though, is that Patrick Mahomes is stepping into a game that he has a ton of experience in. Jalen Hurts has only been there once. Mahomes this will be his 5th Super Bowl, his chance to win his 4th in 5 tries, which would obviously
80% sounds pretty damn good, right?
Right? It's insane, and it's rarefied air. But you're in a situation where Mahomes is better, and when you look at what matters most in most games like this, it's what coaches are better. How do they take advantage of things? Sirianni had the Eagles firing all cylinders the last time that they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Andy Reid struggled early in the game, figured it out a little bit more as the game went on, and obviously was able to get it done. But I trust Andy Reid a lot more than I trust Nick Sirianni, and I obviously trust Patrick Mahomes way more than I will ever trust Jalen Hurts. So,
yeah,
to me, those are the two biggest things in this game, and it both favors Kansas City.
Yeah, it has to. I think the way that they go about and how they continue to peak, there's no argument that the rest helped this team get to this point. That 3 weeks off was critical. Honestly, I don't know if it happens if it isn't for those 3 weeks. Now, with a simulated practice report today, they didn't do anything on field. Obviously, they're studying and everything. Andy even said that they came in the very next day, had a Tuesday off. Wednesday pretty light. They'll probably do a walkthrough on Thursday, taking this as a full week of preparation. This is the week that you install, though. You're not going to get anything serious done next week when you have all the media hubbub, all the distractions, practice that can be viewed because you're not in your home facility. There's a whole lot of different things. So install, rest, making sure that you're mentally prepared, you're mentally recharged from that drama that you just went through with the Bills. It feels like Andy Reid is also better prepared to deal with all that and set his players on a path to be ready to peak come game time.
Agreed. And I do think that he is going to have them. They've been here. This is their 5th Super Bowl in 7 years or 6, whatever. They've been here. They know exactly what they're getting themselves into. They know what media day is going to be like. And honestly, most of the Eagles do too, to be fair, because they were just here 2 years ago. So they have a pretty decent idea. But Kansas City has, I guarantee you, Andy Reid has figured out over his time in Kansas City over the past 5 Super Bowls, 4 Super Bowls before this one, how he wants to attack and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to have all this installed I'm sure they probably already got the game plan figured out for the most part. There's going to be some tweaks that they'll have with Patrick. But generally speaking, I would bet that the offensive game plan is already almost close to being set to an extent, especially probably the first 15 plays. I'm pretty sure he has a pretty good idea there. But the reality is like you said, it's a completely different environment. And the other area that this is going to benefit Kansas City, that it won't benefit the Eagles, even though that they were just there 2 years ago. Anybody that's been in Kansas City more than a season this will be their second. You can't say that of Philadelphia. And they've got a lot of young guys that this is going to be their first experience of going to a Super Bowl and seeing the media and dealing with all of that and dealing with all the hoopla and all the different events that you have. And it's not going to be a normal week of football. That's just the way it is. Kansas City, even their young guys for the most part, even the rookies that were here their second-year players, they dealt with this last year. They know what they're getting themselves into. The rookies don't know what they're getting themselves into, or guys that they sign like Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, but they're both pros. They have a pretty decent idea as to how things are supposed to work. And I guarantee you that Mahomes and everybody else is willing to give them any tips or tricks that they need. So when you talk about preparedness, obviously playing in 5 Super Bowls in such a short time, now, you're going to be in a great situation for this. And I think that heavily favors Kansas City. Whether or not it plays out to be what gets them the win is going to be a question. And we'll be able to debate that after the game. But this is going to be a good game. Kansas City and Andy Reid preparing for Philadelphia and their defense. And then, obviously Spagnuolo is going to have something in mind for Saquon Barkley and how he's going to slow down the Philly passing game. But the other thing that really stands out to me that I'm going to be curious at how they deal with is Kansas City has gotten after the passer something fierce the past 2 weeks. How do they continue that in the Super Bowl? Do they continue that in the Super Bowl? And part of it is the players are playing very well, and I get some of that. It's also scheme. It's also, tendencies. You set tendencies and you play to them. Are they going to get to a point where they just say, okay, well, this is what we have done. We're not necessarily going to do it again because, that's what the Eagles are going to expect. Maybe they do something completely different. And
could be. It's
all about surprising Jalen Hurts. I don't think you're going to be surprising Patrick Mahomes. I do think you can surprise Jalen Hurts.
Agreed. And especially if his O-line, which is stout, no pun intended, is not 100%. We're going to have to watch that center position as well as the right guard position and see what happens. The tackles are maybe the best duo they've faced all season. So you have your work cut out for you then. We're going to take a deeper look at it tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. And Derek's going to be back with us next week, and we're going to be back into a normal rotation. So don't miss a show because we got you 5 days a week plus all the way up to the Super Bowl. So leave us your thoughts. How do they peak? What else can they do to peak on game day? Put that in the YouTube comments below. We appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you like and sub. Hit those bells and those whistles and everything else that we got. Check out our sponsors. Make sure that you're subscribed, not only here on YouTube, but on the audio platforms because we are free and available 5 days a week for you. And we will talk to you tomorrow